Someone didn't like that post. Maybe I should delete it. Welcome to the Hack Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Barnes, bringing you right now solutions to some of your biggest teaching and learning problems. Now, let's hack learning. Okay, I'm going to admit it. Recently, I was called out on Facebook for posting something that someone deemed inappropriate. Well, inappropriate in as much as a person felt that I was sharing what was called, air quotes going on here, fake news and perpetuating lies and all kinds of other things. This led to a very heated discussion on Facebook, a debate, I like to think. But the debate seemed to become infiltrated with a whole lot of ranting, name-calling, and other unseemly things that really are not very savory, for one. They're not the kinds of things that people want to see. They're the kinds of things that I said in the open, people wonder, should I delete this? In my own opinion, I stayed away from the name-calling and from a lot of the things that I think would be unprofessional. I did have a conversation about it with several people, and it made me circle back to something that I wrote a year ago over on my blog, Brilliant or Insane, Education on the Edge. And this was a post about teaching kids about social media, because I had written some things, I've written books about social media and technology in the classroom, and how we need to do it and what we need to be teaching kids and how educators need to set the example. So I wrote this post, and after I had this exchange with people on Facebook over something I shared, I went back to reflect on it because I thought, maybe I need to be policing myself better than I really am, because the idea in that post was that we need to teach kids how to police themselves. So I want to share today how I think we should teach kids to police themselves on social media. I'm going to provide 5 ways to do that. And these are sort of in that hack learning tradition of what you can do tomorrow. But also what I'm going to recommend, advice I'm taking from myself, that we need to police ourselves first because we need to set the example. It's really important because today kids can see what you do. If we're on social media, we have to know that kids are watching. It's going to be very difficult for us to say you should or shouldn't do something if we're not modeling the right way to do it. So here's what I'm going to suggest. There are 5 things here, and then of course you can read them over on our show notes page, hacklearning.org/police. So the first thing I think we need to do, and I asked myself, I sort of did a check. I use this as a checklist for me. The first thing I would want to do myself, and I want to teach kids about policing themselves, is think before you share. Social media can be intoxicating. I know you've seen research about kids being engaged 7 to 10 hours a day. Some adults are unable to function in normal daily life because we have this obsession with social media, with sharing and commenting on and liking posts. So what we have to do, because we're sharing all the time and kids are sharing, we need to talk about it. And we need to say, we want to think before you share. So we have to teach kids to fight the urge to share absent-mindedly. And that's not just sharing content, but it's commenting on it as well. And that leads me to tip number 2 in policing ourselves and teaching kids to police themselves on social media. Tip 2 is never respond in anger. I kept asking myself in this recent exchange I had, did I respond in anger? Someone wrote something that I thought was pretty inflammatory, and it was in response to me and some others who were commenting in this very almost viral thread that had 90-something comments at one time. I didn't like what the person said, and instead of lash out, though, I did say, there are some rules here. If you want to comment here on my personal page, and on my opinion, if you want to comment, there are some rules. Someone took offense to what I said in those rules. I talked about spelling properly and capitalizing, and I'm a publisher, so I think about those things. And language, because there was some abusive language in there. And I have to say, someone looked at it as arrogant, and when I looked back, it was maybe a little snarky. So did I respond in anger? I asked myself, because that's an important tip. I think we have to teach kids that our blood can boil. It's just like, face to face. You see kids and eventually they argue and something comes to blows. It's because their blood boils and they react angrily. We do that on social media. So we need to teach kids to pause, and we need to ask the question, is this okay? We need to read and reflect and then decide if our response is okay before we add that response. And I must say that perhaps I would have changed the language in my rules for posting if I had followed this guideline. We make mistakes. That's important to recognize. We need to tell kids that. So another tip for teaching kids to police themselves on social media is to understand the long-term impact of your social shares. This is a big one. And I had a back and forth with someone in this debate on Facebook about the thinking long-term. And I told someone privately, I think that there's risk in the way you are saying things in a public forum. People are watching, and we have to tell kids this. It's so important. I was in a conference and a session a couple of years back where an attorney was talking about your liability on social media, and he gave examples of educators who were terminated from their job for things they posted, pictures and things they said, and a lot of things you would look at and go, oh, that doesn't seem that bad. We really need to think about the ramifications of what we say and do on social media, and it's really important to tell kids this and give them some examples of things that they might first say, well, it's not that bad, but someone else looking would. I say, if an objective person happens by and they read it, what will they think? Will they think, oh, this is inappropriate? Or will they think it's okay? Even if it's edgy. Well, it's an edgy debate. It's an opinion I might not agree with, but it's okay. I think that's important. Another tip we need to teach kids for policing themselves on social media, tell them to ask, why am I liking or retweeting something? If it's on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is if I like it or share it, retweet, share, I'm making a statement about it. And we need to be careful of that. We're so quick to like, that's the Facebook generation, and now other social networks have gravitated to the like. It's easy. It's a way of me acknowledging what you've done. But sometimes maybe it's not okay to like something. So we need to think about that and ask that same question. Let's do that read, reflect, and decide. I want to read it. I want to reflect on it and what it means, and then decide, should I like it or should I share it? And tip number 5, and this, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but it's important to state it. Tell kids to avoid confrontation. And I think this is a big one. And I got to this because of an exchange I had on Facebook recently that got me thinking about my own actions along with the actions of others. I thought, is it okay to have this kind of confrontation? Now, I think debate's a good thing, and I share opinions on my personal page. I share a lot of opinion. On my professional pages, I'm sure I share opinion about education and best practices. But if anything gets into a personal arena or political, I keep that on my personal page, and I try to separate those two. But still, it's very easy to get into confrontation when you have hot-button issues. Politics are hot-button issues. You love the president, you hate the president. You love this topic or issue, or you hate it. It's easy to share, and then it's easy to go into a back and forth that can look ugly and confrontational. So let's talk about this with kids. Say, is it worth it? It's best to take that pause moment before sharing a comment or liking or sharing a post. And sometimes it's better to say, if it really gets to you and you think I might do something that I shouldn't, that has long-term ramifications, sometimes it's best to walk away. We have to ask ourselves, should I do something here? Should I react? Or maybe I should just walk away, or if I'm on my device reading a Facebook or a Twitter share or something on Instagram, maybe I should just keep scrolling past or navigate to another page. Have these discussions with kids and teach them to police themselves because it's so important to do that. Hey, check out the rest of this over at hacklearningpodcast.com. These specific show notes at hacklearning.org/police. And remember to check out hacklearningfree.com for your copy of Hack Learning Anthology, great innovation for teachers and leaders, and all of the other amazing media on that site. That is hacklearningfree.com. As always, we continue the conversation at #HackLearning on Twitter and on the show notes page at hacklearningpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.